This happened in the fall of 2018 during my college years in Pennsylvania. I had a late class that ended at 10 p.m., and on Fridays I would drive home for the weekend. My family's house was about 3 hours away, mostly through empty highways and back roads. That night it was cold, and the sky was pitch black. The roads were quiet with barely any cars passing by. After driving for an hour, I decided to take a shortcut through a rural area to save time. It was a narrow two-lane road surrounded by trees on both sides. No street lights, no houses, just me and the dark. I remember feeling uneasy as I drove. The road felt endless, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The stillness outside was heavy, almost unnatural. I turned off the radio to distract myself, but even that didn't help. The static on the radio only made the silence worse. Then, after what felt like an eternity, I saw something up ahead. There was a car parked on the side of the road with its hazard lights flashing. The blinking red lights cut through the darkness, making the scene look eerie. As I got closer, I noticed a man standing next to the car. He was waving me down. It looked like he was in his 40s, wearing a jacket and jeans. His car hood was open, and he seemed to be having trouble. I slowed down and rolled down my window slightly. Do you need help? I asked, my voice a little shaky. The man smiled, but something about his smile wasn't right. It was too wide, too forced. Yeah, he said, nodding. My car broke down. Can you give me a ride to the gas station? I hesitated. I couldn't see any other cars or houses nearby, and the darkness around us felt suffocating. Something about this man didn't sit right with me. Where's the gas station? I asked, trying to buy time. He pointed behind me and said, just a few miles back. I can guide you. His answer made my stomach tighten. I had just driven the road and I was sure there was no gas station. My gut told me to leave. I'm sorry, I'm in a hurry, I said quickly and started to roll up my window. That's when his smile disappeared. His face changed completely, like he was angry. He stepped closer to my car and said in low voice, you should help people when they are in trouble. That tone, it sent chills down my spine. It wasn't pleading or thankful. It sounded threatening. I didn't wait for him to say anything else. I hit the gas and sped off. As I drove away, I looked in my rearview mirror. The man just stood there watching my car. He didn't move, didn't chase after me, just stared until I could no longer see him. It would have been a good thing if the incident had ended here, but now the real fear remains. A few minutes later, I saw another car on the side of the road. This one didn't have its hazard lights on, but it looked abandoned. As I passed by, my heart nearly stopped. It was the same car the man had been standing next to earlier. I slammed on the brakes for a second, my mind racing. How could his car be here? There were no turns off, no side roads he could have used to get ahead of me. I didn't want to believe it, but I couldn't deny what I had just seen. Panic set in. I pressed the gas harder, desperate to get off that road. My hands were shaking as I gripped the steering wheel. I kept glancing my mirrors, half expecting to see someone or something chasing me. The road seemed longer now, like it would never end. The trees on the either side felt like they were closing in, and the darkness outside grew even darker. I swear, I started hearing faint whispers, though it could have been my own fear playing tricks on me. Finally, after what felt like hours, I saw the main highway up ahead. The sight of the streetlights and distant traffic was a relief like no other. I didn't stop until I reached home, and even then, I couldn't shake the unease that clung to me. When I told my dad about what happened, he looked concerned. He said, you did the right thing. Never stop for anyone on those back roads. He told me the stories he had heard about strange encounters on lonely roads, stories about people who stopped to help but were never seen again. I have avoided that shortcut ever since. Even now, whenever I drive at night, I find myself glancing at the side of the road, half expecting to see that man again. And every time I pass by a parked car, I wonder if it is just an innocent driver or something much worse. To this day, I still don't know who or what that man was. But one thing for sure, I will never stop for anyone on an empty road again. I have always liked staying up late, so working as a night delivery driver was perfect for me. One cold evening in November, I got a last minute delivery to a small town in rural Pennsylvania. The road was mostly quiet highways and long empty back roads. I didn't mind. Driving at night always felt calm. The first part of the drive was normal. My truck hummed along and my playlist kept me company. But things changed when I turned into Road 58, a narrow dark road that cut through thick woods. The road had no street lights, and the only light came from my high beams, which barely lit up the tall trees on either side. Anyway, I ignored that all thing and focused on the driving. After driving about 10 miles, I noticed something on the side of the road. At first, I thought it was just a shadow playing tricks on me. But as I got closer, I realized it was a woman. She was walking along the edge of the road, wearing a thin white dress. It didn't make any sense in the freezing weather. Her long dark hair looked messy, and she was walking very slowly. I thought in mind why she was walking near the road at night. I slowed down and pulled up next to her, rolling down the window. Hey, are you okay? I asked. She turned her head just enough for me to see her face. Her skin was pale, almost glowing in the darkness, and her eyes seemed strange, almost like they were shining.
Can you take me to the next town?
She asked in quiet, soft voice. I felt unsure, but nodded. She opened the door and climbed into the passenger seat without saying another word. I noticed she wasn't wearing shoes and her feet were dirty and scratched. As soon as she shut the door, the air inside the truck freezing cold, even though I had the heater on full blast. As we drove, I tried to make a small talk to ease the tension. So, what were you doing out there? She didn't answer. She just stared out the window, her hands tightly clasped in her lap. I thought she was not interested to talk with me. Her silence made me uneasy, but I didn't push her to talk. After about 10 minutes, suddenly she spoke.
Slow down, there's a sharp turn ahead.
She said. I was confused because I hadn't seen any sign warning about a curve, but I decided to trust her and slowed down. As I rounded the bend, I saw it, a sharp turn leading to a steep drop into a ravine. If I hadn't slowed down, I would have driven straight off the road. Thanks, I muttered, glancing at her, but she didn't say anything back. Around 8 p.m., we reached the edge of the next town. I asked her where she wanted to go. She pointed to a small diner on the side of the road. Here's fine, she said, finally looking at me. Her eyes looked strange, too dark, like there were no light in them. I pulled into the diner's parking lot. Before I could say anything, she opened the door and stepped out. She walked toward the diner, and I watched her disappear through the entrance. Something about the whole thing felt me wrong, so I decided to go inside to check on her. But when I walked in, the diner was almost empty. The only people there were an older man sitting at the counter and the waitress whipping tables. Excuse me, I said to the waitress. Did you see a woman come in here just now? She was wearing a white dress barefoot. The waitress frowned. No, you were the first customer we have had in over an hour. My stomach dropped. She got out my truck right outside, I insist, but he declined to accept. I tried many times to explain him about her, but my all efforts were in vain. Just as I was about to leave after trying so hard to find out, I heard someone calling me from behind. The older man at the counter turned toward me, his face serious. Did you pick up her on Road 58? He asked. I nodded slowly. He sighed and shook his head. Son, you just met the hitchhiker. People around here have been seeing her for decades. She died on the road back in 70s. Her car went off the sharp turn into the ravine. You were lucky she warned you. I felt a cold chill crawl down my spine. I walked out of the diner, my legs feeling heavy. When I got back to my truck, I noticed the passenger seat was wet, like someone had been sitting there and dripping water. I never drove down Road 58 again. I don't know what she was, or why she decided to help me. But my questions are, why did she ask me to stop the car near that diner? Was the older man telling truth to me? And what was the mystery of that wet seat?